Hey everybody, welcome to the Hey Everybody podcast, episode 61. I'm dealing with some frustration. I started shooting the episode, the camera crashed again, so now I'm trying with my phone, which is a tricky thing because the lens is here, but the preview is here. So I catch myself wanting to look here when I should look here. You are here. You are what I care about. We'll see if this works. If it does work, it could be a bit of a blessing in disguise because it'll make this whole setup that much more portable and that kind of thing. And God willing, someday I will be a traveling musician again. Let's have some coffee. Oof. What a world. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. I've had a tumultuous week. Nothing real is messed up. There's no real problems. But it seems like in every area of my life, there's some ripples in the water. You know, I have some friendships that it's like, what's going on? You know, I have an extended family matter that is like, what's going on? Professionally, you know, I had another show get canceled for what I would call COVID adjacent reasons. I think there's a real risk in crediting too much stuff to COVID, because when you say I had a show get canceled because of COVID, people assume that I got COVID or that someone got COVID. And what really happened is that someone sort of adjacent to the show tested positive, symptom free, but they have to lock it down for like 10 days. And that meant the show had to get canceled. Best wishes to everyone dealing with any of that, because I know, like, it's stressful. Even if you feel good, you get that positive test, it's very stressful. You think you might get a positive test, it's very stressful. We went through some of that in our household some time ago. But it's also stressful because it's like, is this how winter's gonna look? Is this how, you know, we had a show recently that was good, but had a notably diminished crowd size because some people aren't comfortable coming indoors for shows. There was a requirement that you be vaccinated or have a negative test, and some people told me they weren't going to do that, so they weren't going to come to the show. I wish that they would. You know, I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything really. I, as it says on the mug, am a nobody from nowhere, and that's how I like it. It's what we're going to talk about later. But I got vaccinated because it seemed like a good idea, and the people I trust that are trustworthy and would know told me it was a good idea. So, for whatever it's worth, you know. All that to say, though, I was feeling a lot of feelings this week, and I was feeling anxious. I was losing my temper. If I could pat myself on the back for a minute, I would say they were all pretty brief. And I did a fairly good job of sort of getting myself back to where I like to be. My wife was very helpful and very understanding, and encouraging when she needed to be encouraging, and understanding when she needed to be understanding, and even, you know, tolerant, I guess, when she needed to be tolerant. But I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about something that I listen to people talk about a lot, something that I talk about a lot, which is that there's a peace and a comfort in the meaninglessness that we try to forget about. In an infinite, ever-expanding universe full of an infinite number of other universes and time that we don't understand, and you know, all this the history of life on this planet, the history of just human life on this planet, you're here and gone. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And I know some people are uncomfortable with that. Sometimes I'm uncomfortable with that. But I believe it to be true. And I believe, like all truth, there can be peace in accepting it. To me, it should alleviate a pressure to be the best musician ever. First of all, I can't be. Because Joe Strummer and Townes Van Zandt not only existed, but existed, however briefly, at the same time. You know, and one of them at the same time as me. Both of them at the same time as me, actually. You never think about that. Like, how many, for me, musical heroes are walking the planet with me, or at some point walked the planet with me. It's kind of remarkable when you think about it. All the times you could have been born, you get to share space with Springsteen. Not too bad. But I do think sort of accepting the meaninglessness of a lot of things can help us put in perspective the kind of things I went through this week. The kind of ultimately small but persistent, kind of picky things that were happening to me, if you want to put it that way. But when it became a lot harder for me to stay worked up or anxious or upset or angry about any of these things if I tried to keep in my mind the idea that I'm small, my life is small, the world I live in is small compared to everything we know and everything we don't, you know? And it made me sort of realize something about a hobby of mine. One of my favorite things to do is either alone or with Tori and Ollie, to be in a place I'm not used to being in and to have no plan or schedule. We very often will wake up on a Saturday, we'll get in the car, and we'll just cruise to a town that we heard had a cool bookstore and a cool record store and a coffee place. And then we'll just sort of wander around and experience the town and be unknown and be unburdened by any expressed or unexpressed expectation of who I should be or who we should be. And I love that. It's one of my favorite parts about traveling as a musician is I get to town early and I just kind of hang out and wander around and look around and see what's up. And I realized that you could say that that is me sort of locking into the peace of meaninglessness and how small I am. That like I'm in a town of maybe 50,000 people and none of them know who I am. And nobody's expecting me to be anywhere. I could be here, I could not be here, and it would not matter to this town. And I really love the freedom of that. So I started thinking, obviously, you know, you can't live like that all the time because the mortgage has to get paid and the kid needs to get fed and all this kind of stuff. The shows need to get booked. But I wonder to myself if I could keep that feeling of being in a small town and being unknown and being free to do as I please and to only do the things I like and only want to do, you know. If I could keep that in my mind and if I could recognize that as a parallel to all of my existence, that I am in a, you know, cosmically, I'm in a very small town, living a very small life that ultimately, on a long enough timeline, will become inconsequential. I wonder what impact that will have when I do have to pay the mortgage or book the show or deal with the friend or you know, go through a conflict or whatever. I think sometimes people get put off by the notion that they're small and it doesn't matter because they go, it does matter because you don't know about my job and about my family and about all this kind of stuff. And I wonder if the accepting that I'm small and that ultimately I will disappear, maybe that's not supposed to, it's not going to make the mortgage go away. It's not going to make anything go away. But if I go into it knowing all those things, maybe I can deal with my little conflicts and my little problems a little bit better. And maybe I can even avoid some of them by going, if I am ultimately meaningless and my life's meaning is only found in the things that bring me joy and the joy I bring to other people, maybe I don't want to deal with this situation. Maybe I want to go be with my wife, take her out to lunch. Maybe I don't want to deal with this situation. Maybe I want to go shoot a podcast and try to, ultimately, I hope this podcast is helping people. With what? I couldn't possibly know. Or how? I don't know. I'm a big believer that if you make things, you should make the kind of things that you wish existed. When you write a song, it should be the song that like you've always wanted to hear. When you make a podcast, it should be the kind of podcast you would want to watch or listen to. And I, of course, I try my best to prioritize sincerity, above all things. Not like a hacky, terrible sincerity where like it's labored over and you can tell. I just mean like I don't ever want to be the kind of guy that doesn't tell you guys that I had a week where I got wrapped up in small stuff and I lost my temper a couple times and that kind of thing. Like, I don't think I'll ever be the guy that never does that. And I'm not sure who would want to watch this if I was. Those guys are annoying as hell. So, here's the good news. Life is meaningless and we're all going to die. But we have it. It's ours right now to do with what ultimately makes it feel meaningful and makes it feel like it might last forever. The love I have for my wife and son very often makes me believe in an afterlife because it's so big and so much and so strong. It couldn't possibly go away just because, my kidneys fail or something like that. So, I don't know. If there's a bow to be put on this, it's what I've been working on this week is when I see a problem or an issue or a conflict or a feeling that I wish I wasn't feeling, I try to remind myself very soon this won't matter because it's part of my life and nothing will matter. And I know for a lot of people that sounds dark and dreary, but it's not. It's about, if you're in love with a person and you come home from work and you were stuck in traffic and your boss was terrible and all this kind of stuff, you missed your lunch break and all this, but you love this person and you walk into the house and they're there. If you're really dialed into that person and how little time you're going to get with them, I think it would be a challenge to launch into this terrible, my boss and the traffic around here and I didn't get to eat lunch today. I think you would feel more like, thank God that's over. Thank God I'm here with this person. That's what I want to do right now. And I was listening to this podcast while I was taking a shower the other day. And I got out of the shower and I went to go talk to Tori, my wife, about what had been going on and my terribly important, serious feelings about it. And all of a sudden, I just didn't have the energy to do it in a great way. I just didn't feel like, I don't want to push that particular rock up that particular hill. Not when I could just sit here with you and watch the game and laugh at the funny coach's haircut and just feel some joy, some small joy in my small life that feels big, and maybe, if the bad stuff can feel big, even though we know it's not, maybe the good stuff can too. I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling. I did not really crystallize this thought before I tried to share it with you. And in fact, I got pretty far into it before my camera crashed, which is another thing. It's interesting. I know that there was a time that this particular episode of the podcast would not have been good because my camera just crashed, you guys. I'm so upset. But if you stick with it long enough, if you stick with the mindfulness long enough and you really effort towards having the kind of brain you want to have, you will find yourself like, what am I going to do? I'm going to be upset about this? Like, to what end? There will be things that will require my attention. One of the things that's going on in our lives right now may require some attention and may become a serious thing. And I don't want to be, you know, in that place any longer than I need to. And I will hopefully be more effective in that place if I only go there when I need to. So, speaking of life bringing you nice things, here's some recommendations, and then I'll get you out of here. Hopefully you'll see this. I don't know how I'm going to get the footage off my phone onto my computer, but, you know, hopes are high. I bought this record the other day. It's called Journey to the Beginning, a steel guitar tribute to the Byrds and their great album, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, by Lloyd Green and J.D. Manis, who were the original steel players on this original record. And it's awesome. It's you know, Sweetheart of the Rodeo is a great record. And instrumental music is something I've really, really been enjoying these last few years. I love the pedal steel, which is what we're talking about when we say steel guitar. And it's just an instrumental version of this classic record with a heavy emphasis on pedal steel. And you get your fiddles and that kind of thing. It's a lovely way to spend an hour. So dig into it. I love it. And then, because I bought something by him the other day, not this, but something different. This is the man. This is Blaze Foley. This record's called Sittin' by the Road. And there's a version of this record on Spotify with a different cover, but it's called Sittin' by the Road. And if you don't know about Blaze Foley, I encourage you to learn as much as you can. You know, he doesn't have a ton of documented music. His life was not as long as it should have been, and he was not as lauded as he should have been while he was here. But if you've ever heard anyone, possibly John Prine, do a song called Clay Pigeons, ask Blaze Foley. He's got a song called Big Cheeseburgers and Good French Fries. I love it. He's got a song called Let Me Ride in Your Big Cadillac, Cold, Cold World. It's great. This record is just his voice and his guitar. He's a great finger-picking guitar player, and his voice is one of a kind. It's like boomy, but intimate and emotional, and, you know, he's great. If John Prine decides he needs to play someone else's song, they're worth your time. So check out Blaze Foley. And that's it. I hope this was good or helpful or whatever it's supposed to be. I honest to God, sometimes people ask, they say, what's your podcast about? And I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's a little bit about philosophy or spirituality or mindfulness, but I think that makes it sound smarter than it really is. I think for the most part, it's just, you know, this is what I think about, and this is the stuff I'm working on. And the people that have been most helpful to me in my life have been the people that are going through what I'm going through or have gone through what I've gone through. And, you know, my life has been getting better and better the deeper into this stuff I dig, the deeper into mindfulness and trying to be present and perspective and stoicism and all that kind of stuff, the better my life has gotten. And I think the proof that that is real is not just in, sometimes even when I want to be angry, I just don't have the steam. But it's also in my desire to share it. You know, I think if you really stumble upon something helpful and profound, you not only have a duty to share it, but I'm laughing because if my son was here, we'd both go, duty. That's why this podcast is never going to be deep. Not only do you have a responsibility to share it, but if it's real, it should create in you a somewhat burning desire to share with people what's going on. So, you know, this is what's going on. If you like it, you can share it, you can comment, you can email me. If you want to book a house show, email me, Christopher@ChristopherGold.com. If there's something you want to talk about on the podcast, you can get in the comments, you can shoot me an email. And then if you want to chip in, you can Venmo at Christopher Gold Music, you can PayPal Christopher@ChristopherGold.com, or you can just come to a show and buy a book or a CD or a shirt or something. There will be a longer conversation, I think probably soon, about what's happening in the music industry and what it might mean for merch and how things are paid for and what those things are and all this kind of stuff. Because again, it's just something that I've been dealing with a lot and thinking about a lot, and it might be worth having a chat about. In the meantime, may your coffee always be warm and black. Or however you like it. Take it easy. Be good. And we'll talk to you soon.